Welcome to the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon. Texas gets a big win over Baylor this weekend. We'll get into all of that. Texas breakdown, some audio from Sark today at his press conference. The Texans get a win. Cowboys do not. We get into all of that and more NFL, more college football. Little MLB if we get some time. We have some magic numbers now. The Astros is not a good number. Couldn't make any room on it this weekend. We'll get to all of that on the show. Of course, your text, 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776 is the text line. You guys drive the show. You know what? I might open the phone line later. We'll see. We will see if we open up the phone lines. If you all got some good takes on Texas, on the Cowboys, on the Texans, and any of the good football that happened this week. It's a Monday. Get some reactions from you guys on a Monday. Love to do it. Of course, we'll have Patrick's Big Fat Poll coming up as well, and we'll get you to chime in on the text line, 512-337-3776. Send us in your reactions, your takes from a weekend of football here on a Monday afternoon here on the Horn on the Sports Complex. Let's get into some talk about Texas and Baylor. Texas wins 38-6. It was the type of game you wanted to see defensively. You saw a few plays that didn't go the way you wanted, but overall, you didn't allow a huge dagger against you. You didn't ever let it get out of control. You allowed 2 field goals, so you feel okay there. The number 38, you finally had a first half that looked pretty good. You could have had a little bit better of a second half. That third quarter still seems to be somewhat of a problem coming out at halftime. The energy, of course, when you're winning, it's harder to have that massive energy in the fourth quarter. So there were a few things you could look at and say wasn't, the perfect game. You didn't win 70-0, but 38-6 is a pretty good score. I think most of us are pretty happy with the 38-6. Quinn Ewers looked pretty good in this game. The offense was rolling, both running the ball and passing. We got to see a little bit more of a different things. The one big factor that everybody can take away is special teams is the 2 muff punts, that this game is very different without 2 muff punts because you basically gave them the ball, in really good field position twice in this game. So things could change very much there. But let's start out going over to some audio that Coach Sark had this morning talking to the media at his weekly Monday presser. And let's get his opening thoughts from the presser today about the Baylor game and how he felt about the performance and special teams too.
Okay, so just to recap the last ball game quickly after watching the tape, I was really proud of our guys in a couple areas. One was our ability to play complementary football. You think about, we get a stop, we get a big punt return, 2 plays later, touchdown. We're in the low red, 4th down, Jalen Ford gets an interception. Didn't love him bringing it out, but we get the ball on the 5, and then the offense goes 95 yards for a touchdown. We muff a punt, sudden change. Our defense is able to take the field, put the fire out, and not give momentum back to them. So from a complementary football standpoint, I think that really stood out to me. I think an area where we need to improve, I think we can be much better on special teams. I know it wasn't glaring outside of, we see the 2 muff punts, but it was other things beyond that. And we've got a very high standard here on special teams. So that'll be a point of emphasis of ours this week to make sure we get back to playing the standard on special teams that we're capable of. Just some things I'm proud of the guys now through 4 games. We're one of the least penalized teams in the country right now. We're playing really disciplined football. I love the fact that we're, for the most part, taking care of the ball. Those are 2 odd turnovers last week coming off those punts. But what Quinn's doing, taking care of the ball, our ability to create interceptions on defense, I think has been a huge factor. And I love what our defense is doing, obviously, in the red zone. I think we're one of the top, if not the top, red zone defensive team right now, defending the end zone. And then, obviously, what they're doing on 3rd down and on 4th down, I think are all really cool things that sometimes are hidden numbers in the game, that you don't always see in the stat line. But in the end, that changes field position, that changes momentum. So,
yeah, it was a pretty balanced all-around performance from this Tex team, minus special teams. And we'll play clips. We'll play some clips about special teams in a minute because that is the one glaring thing you can say cost this Texas team this week. And they still win 38-6. But if we look at how they were able to use Quinn Ewers and they were able to get enough protection up front, I thought there was some play calling on that first drive I wasn't a huge fan of. I talked about this in the pregame with Rod that you don't want to. Against a Baylor team, you have to know what your opponent is. And with a Baylor team, you can kind of impose your will because the Dave Aranda defense is going to be built more about speed than size. And when you have big humans that are also pretty fast, then you can basically block up the middle and just run the ball up the middle, run around. You can run around tackle and stuff like that, but you don't necessarily want to be trying to set up screens on the outside because those take a little bit to develop, and that D-line and those linebackers would much rather run to the outside and try and beat a lineman or beat a blocker to a spot than they would try and go through a blocker. And so the more you put it to the outside and you make it a race, that's not necessarily the best way to attack that Baylor defense. So I didn't like some of the play calling earlier. I think they kind of fleshed that out and realized that you don't need to do as many of those setup screens. I think you set up the screen somewhat to do that, the double pass, which I know some people are getting mad at him for doing a double pass because he already showed it off, and he did it in Alabama. Like, he's going to use that a lot, I think. And I'm really curious to see what the end game is with it, to see if he's going to continue to do that until he has another trick on top of the double pass where it's something where it's some other type of trick play that he's going to try and run out of it. I don't know. Or if he's just going to keep doing it because no one seems to be guarding it because Xavier Worthy's that much of a threat. So I know that those screens are kind of to set up something else that did work down in the game. But it's still on that defense, you'd rather just run the ball. And if you're going to do a screen, you're going to have to do it a little bit closer to the line to give your lineman a shot to get to those blocks instead of so far out on it. But other than that, I thought Sark's play calling was pretty good. It was pretty balanced, get guys out, and Sark talked about the balanced attack and what he's trying to do of keeping this team. You want to be able to run the ball, but you have to get Quinn Ewers involved. This Texas team we all know is much better when you can get all those weapons and JT Sanders and Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell and Jordan Whittington. If you can get all those weapons involved in the game, it makes you exponentially better. And so you need Quinn Ewers to be able to do that. You have to get him in rhythm. So even though you could have just kept running the ball on him, you do need that balanced attack. I'm a big proponent of running the football. Jonathan Brooks has been doing great. We'll play some sound about Jonathan Brooks, too, because I think he has had a really good 3 weeks, especially ending the Alabama game through Wyoming, through this Baylor game. I talked early in the season about Jonathan Brooks and wanting him to establish his role as the number one running back. He's done that now. Play about that in a minute. But let's talk about the balanced attack that Texas has. Here's Sark talking about the balanced attack and getting Quinn Ewers, getting those players, getting similar amounts of targets for different wide receivers, trying to get people involved in having a balanced attack against this Baylor team.
Yeah, I mean, we try to be a versatile football team, not just on offense. We try to do as many things as we can really well. And I've said this before the season to the team that we're not one-dimensional, and we're going to have the ability this season to win games a variety of ways. And early in the year, our ability to throw the football was very effective. Saturday night, our run game really came to life. Really, the last 2 weeks has been our run game that has put points on the board. Defensively, we're very stout against the run, but yet we're not giving up touchdown passes either. And so, historically, we've been a great block team. So far this season, where we're making our hay on punt return has been with the punt return game at the return. So we're trying to be as versatile as possible so that when people try to prepare for us, they kind of have to pick their poison. And then it's our job as coaches is to highlight the other area and to make sure that we're equipped enough to take advantage of the opportunities that we have.
And that really, the pick your poison is what Texas has been aiming to have and the Sark offense has been aiming for the last 2 years. And you thought with Bijan and Roschon, and then you add Quinn Ewers, you have Xavier Worthy. I know Isaiah Neyor, who it's unfortunate that he's not been able to really crack the rotation this year. But those, A.D. Mitchell has been playing really, really good football. I do think there is something to be said about that pick your poison, that when we talked before the Baylor game, you looked and you said, hey, Baylor's not going to be able to stop the run. They're just like they can't stop the run. So do they sell out to try and stop the run, knowing that Texas is just going to run all over them? In worst case scenario, Texas wins 24-6 or 21-6 because they just kind of run the ball downhill and maybe get a field goal or two more because they can't get that pass in the red zone. But we know they're going to be able to run. Do you sell out there or and try and make Quinn beat you and say, passing's just, maybe the passing game will not be there. Maybe he won't be. But if Quinn Ewers plays like he did against Baylor, not making mistakes, just making the right plays, getting the ball out, that type of thing, then you have to pick. And what Baylor ended up doing was picking neither and letting both sides beat them. They didn't really have a plan for either thing. I think they were hoping that they could at least stop the pass and then the run would get going. And then they just kind of, devote one more guy to the run, and it opened up the passing game. They did get pressure a few times. It looked like there was a few miscommunications. And that's part of that Dave Aranda defense. They're going to confuse you at a few points in that game. But overall, the offensive line did pretty well. Quinn did pretty well of diagnosing what was going to be happening, getting the right plays out there. Sark had a really good game plan going. It was a pretty complete game other than special teams. And one of those pieces is Jonathan Brooks. We talked about it before this season over and over again. I drilled home. I wanted to see Jonathan Brooks be the guy. Because if you're a third-year player and there's a freshman and it's close and Sark's saying it's close and I don't know, and he'll Steven say in this clip we're going to play that he still is looking for a little bit more out of Jonathan Brooks, but you want to go ahead and make that decision for them. And I think in the end of the Alabama game, when C.J. Baxter went down, Jonathan Brooks took over and he says, okay, that's our guy. And then the Wyoming game, he takes over and goes, that's our guy. And in this game, not only does he make a bunch of good plays, but there was that pass where it was a little screen pass and the defense got in between them and Quinn just had to loft it up. And even though Jonathan Brooks has dropped two real, pretty easy passes for touchdowns, he grabs that one-handed and gets down the sideline. All of those things making Jonathan Brooks now, it's not really as much of a competition. I mean, it still is because C.J. Baxter is going to do some good things this year. He's going to be a good running back for Texas. But I think that there's less of a competition of who is the guy right now, who has taken the ball and ran with it, literally and figuratively. Here's Sark talking about Jonathan Brooks and his progression this season.
Well, I think this for Jonathan, I think he got a great experience his first 2 years here, playing with Bijan and Roschon in, one, the type of teammates that they were, two, the leadership they provided, three, the work ethic that they played with, and then four, the skill set, right? I mean, some of the little nuances that they do when they play. And before we even got into the season, Jonathan this year was on our leadership committee because he does things the right way. He's got great demeanor about him. He's a worker. He's a very reliable young man. And in the end, as the season got into the season, we felt like Cedric had earned the opportunity to be the first back out. Things have shifted some. Now Jonathan has been the first guy out here for a couple weeks, and he's playing really good football for us. I mean, I thought he set the tone the other night with that long touchdown run, and I think he surprised a lot of people. I think on our guns, he was just under 22 miles an hour, so he's got more juice in there that maybe we give him credit for. But we definitely know we need Cedric back 100% as well, and I think he's close to it. It was good to see him play and get his first touchdown the other night. But that combination of those two guys, as we work our way through the season, we'll feel it out as we go. But Jonathan has definitely earned the opportunity to get a bulk of carries. He's doing it at a high level, and now we just got to keep him mastering the total package of the complete game. But he's been a threat in the pass game, catching the ball out of the backfield. He's ran the ball well, so we're definitely lucky to have him.
Yeah, and that's where he's still. I feel like I don't know if he thinks the blocking's there enough or recognition of the blocks, and knowing where to get to the right guy, which has been a problem for some of the guys. Xavier Worthy actually has been blocking a lot better, which is surprising because of his size. But I think he understands. I think he's talked to enough NFL scouts now, or at least has had, has the people around him that are telling him what the scouting report on him is. And he is really going to change some minds right now with Xavier Worthy. But Jonathan Brooks has stepped up and taken that role. I do like this text. I'm off the terrified fence. I got hope now. Championship is in our ability. We're playing to ourselves as much as the competition, getting up for every game, which is what you need to do in this Baylor game. Not overlook them. Not diminish that, they're having a down season, not that you have more talent, not that it's a backup quarterback, not any of that. You still have to play up to your level. So you have to be able to have respect for them, but not, play down. And they didn't, especially early. And then a little bit later in the game, I think it was they did lose a little bit of focus. But the first time in a long while, I wasn't S-ing bricks in the fourth quarter, waiting to see how we mess it up. I actually felt confident, which is weird. Not used to this feeling. I agree. There's this weird thing about Texas this year because, first of all, I don't feel like they're a number 3 team in the country. I do feel they should be ranked number 3. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the ranking is wrong. But for whatever reason, because of the last few years, when people say they're 3, it just doesn't compute in my head for some reason. I still think, oh, no, they're like a 20 team, and then we'll later in the season we can get up there. It doesn't. I don't know why. I don't know why in my head I can't comprehend that they're the number 3 team because they are. They beat Alabama handily. They've handled their business as much as they needed to this season. And, in some of those games were close for too long, but they've handled everything. There was no last-second field goals this season so far. You got Kansas this week. It's a big one. The discussion, we'll have a lot more to talk about Kansas than we did with Baylor. Because Baylor this week, trying to, get ready for this game, there wasn't a ton to talk about just because it was not a huge game. It's big because it's the start of Big 12 play, but you weren't expecting Baylor to come out. You were worried that Baylor could do something. You didn't expect Baylor. You were worried. And that's why I like that text. It was weird to not feel the worry in the fourth quarter and not feel worry in the third quarter and in the second half of this game. So, I agree with you. It's a weird feeling this year. This Texas team does feel different. And we're all still pretty guarded. We're drinking the Kool-Aid, but we're pretty guarded. We know where it's been. And this week is the one. Kansas is the one that broke our hearts with Charlie Strong. It broke our heart with the Sark's first year. And it broke some of these players' hearts. And some of the players talked about it, too. I know some of you on the text line, 512-337-3776. Broke y'all's hearts. I know that. So it's nice to see that Texas seems like they're in a position where now we can start moving forward. The progress that we want to see, the progress we want to see against Wyoming, that wasn't necessarily there. That some of the things, the offensive line play, that Quinn Ewers, all that stuff that we kind of want to see take another step, did take a step this week against Baylor, not the special teams. Let's play a little bit of that and get into special teams. And I'll actually bring a positive out of the special teams, though. So we'll play a couple clips, and this is the negative. This is all in the special teams mistakes. Here's Sark talking about those mistakes and kind of how they look at it. And the first part of this is he was asked, will they make a change at the returners? Because, Xavier dropped one, Jay Witt dropped one. Does that mean someone else is going to be returning punts? He gave a one-word answer, no, to that. He did not believe that. Here's Sark talking about those special teams mistakes.
But there's nothing for us to tweak. I felt like the biggest thing for us is, and we showed the guys this morning, there was nothing that happened in that game that we weren't prepared for. But for some reason, when we got into the game, we had players not doing what we had exactly practiced, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for that matter. And so we've got to get back to the same focus that we've touched on offense and defense. We've got to play with on special teams. And a lot of times we have some younger players out there, and it's them trusting their training. If I'm supposed to be blocking the right guard on punt return, I got to block the right guard, because if I don't, now he's free running down the field. Now he's in the face of the returner, and now maybe that's part of the reason we didn't catch the ball. So everybody's got a responsibility that they need to do, and you earn the right to be on that team. But the same way you earned your way on, you can earn your way off if we don't fix the issues that we have and carry over practice to the game. So we just got to trust our training and then apply it on game day.
Sark's a big guy on trust. He wants to trust the players that are out there. And I don't think he actively called out anybody, but he did kind of put out there, our blocking wasn't quite where it was supposed to be on those muff punts. Maybe, Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington, when they're watching it in, see something coming at them that's not supposed to be coming, and they're trying to process more in their brain because now what they're supposed to be happening isn't happening, and they're processing more. Does it excuse the muff punt? Not at all. Not one bit. But that's where his brain is going, where Sark is talking about. Everyone has to play a part in it. You can't just completely miss your block and and still you're not somewhat to blame for those muff punts. You need everybody to play at that level. We had another text. I've watched every Longhorn game for years, and they finally look like a championship team again from the start of the game, like 2005 to 2009. And that's what the point is. They're starting to get there. They're starting to look like those teams, but special teams, man, that's those ones where you just go, I get you, the younger players. I get that there's some problems that, maybe you're going to have a lack of focus and you're playing Baylor and you feel like you have a pretty good game going on. And, you block the guy in front of you. And that's it. That's the difference. You block the guy in front of you, but you're supposed to block the guy to your left. And now you block the guy in front of you, and now the guy on your right is supposed to block the guy in front of you, and you didn't get the right block. And so now everything's messed up, and now a guy gets through. Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington sees it, and they muff the punt. Again, not an excuse for muffing a punt. Not an excuse at all. You still got to make that catch. It's fair catch and catch it. They're not allowed to touch you. But I get where Sark is coming from. Those are the things you need to clean up, of just everybody realizing, knowing the playbook. I know it's hard to memorize, to get off everything. Muff 3, you're right. We lost 2. We lost 2 is what I'm going for. But there was something positive. Well, I'm going to play one positive before we get to the big fat poll, because there was one positive about the punt return and the special teams, which is Xavier Worthy has shown that he is probably going to break one this year, because he has gotten pretty close. So I know the muff one is not good at all, but Xavier Worthy has shown that he can get to those edges, and when the blocking's right, this Texas team is pretty close to being able to break a few. Here's Sark on Xavier Worthy on his punt returns.
I think his confidence is extremely high right now as a return man. This has been back-to-back weeks where he's a shoelace tackle away from taking it the distance. I think he's really committed to understanding the schemes that we're running and how to set up some of the blocks and what's happening there. The reality of it is, there's going to be some physical human error involved, like the drop punt the other day. I'm not trying to make an excuse for the guy. It was a tough kick. The wind was blowing. It was kind of a knuckleball sidewinding kick, and he never got his feet underneath him. So we go right back to the fundamentals with him. You gotta get your feet back underneath you. You got to center the ball and then catch it so that you can get vertical. He struggled on that return to get his feet underneath him, and I think that was just a byproduct of he just couldn't quite gauge that ball. But I think he's got great confidence, and not only as a returner, I just feel like he's playing the game with the utmost confidence at receiver. We're doing a lot with him, and I'm going to continue to point this out. He's blocking at an extremely high level right now on the perimeter, which I don't think we could have said that about him his freshman or sophomore year, but he's taken his game to another level. I think the patience he's shown with some of the coverages he's getting and then seeing other guys make plays is something that he should be commended for. And in the end, he's become a leader. And so when he makes a mistake like the drop punt, he owns it. He feels, believe me, he doesn't like it, and he wants to get right back to getting it fixed.
There's Sark, and I get he makes excuses for Xavier Worthy more than probably any other player on this team. Maybe he does it with Quinn too, but I know the reality of it too. In his mind, he needs Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy to go to the NFL. He needs them to get drafted high enough. He needs all of that for recruiting purposes. He needs those guys because he's been selling that bill of goods that I create these types of players, and I did it at Alabama. I did it at USC. I can do it here at Texas too. So I think there's part of it when he's, making those excuses. It's because those are extensions of him as he sees it. But I agree. I think that he's made some huge plays. There is some things he needs to focus up on. He just makes a little bit too many silly errors. But that's why you need Xavier Worthy to be good, is because of the recruiting. And we need Andrew Beck back. I like that on the text line. Andrew Beck, the best fullback returning kickoff returner in the NFL. That play for the Texans. I watched that play 6 times in a row when it happened. It was so much fun. You can join the conversation on our text line, 512-337-3776, 512-337-3776. And that leads us to our big fat poll of the day.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
You know what the deal is on a Monday, what we're going to ask you. Who was your MVP? Who was your MVP against Baylor? Text in the answer. We'll put them up on social media. The poll up after the show. Who was your MVP for Texas against Baylor? It's on the text line. 512-337-3776 is the text line. 512-337-3776. If you wonder why I read it so many times, so I've been told that I read it too fast and no one can write it down and no one can give me text. I've been told that in person, so I tell you a bunch of times. Who's your MVP for Texas against Baylor? Quinn Ewers had a good game. Went out there, had a good performance. His passer rating was really high. Didn't make mistakes. Did what he needed to do. Didn't get in a bunch of trouble with sacks. Did everything he needed to do. Got his players involved. He got JT Sanders involved. Maybe JT Sanders is the guy. Over 100 yards receiving. Talked in the pregame about how he needed to kind of step up in this game. We wanted to see him get a little bit better and get a little bit more involved in this offense. He was able to do it. Is it Jonathan Brooks? Jonathan Brooks having another good rushing game, controlling the game by getting the time of possession, getting everything he needs. Do we go to the defensive end? We say Jalen Ford has the big interception. Probably shouldn't have pulled it out of the end zone, but he had the big interception. Talked after the game about how the safeties are getting mad at him. Safety said, we want more interceptions than you. Linebackers can't have more interceptions than safeties. Said Jalen Ford. Do we give it to Byron Murphy? And by proxy, Tavondre Sweat, who had another big fourth down stop in this game. That defensive line killed it. But I'm saying Byron Murphy, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. That's a big game for Byron Murphy. And we know what he does on the offensive end, too. Pushing forward. He's gone on both sides. You know, Travis Hunter was out this week. So who's the best two-way player now? Byron Murphy. So, yeah, Byron Murphy. Is he your MVP? Set us on the text line, 512-337-3776. And give me your recaps. Tell me what you thought about the game. Are you feeling better now? You feeling okay? You think Texas can go in? You feeling a little bit more confident before we get to Kansas, Oklahoma? You worried, is this a trap game week? We'll play that a little bit later in the week. I'll tell you that. Sark was asked directly, is this a trap game? And he went for it. But you tell us what you got on the text line. Who is your MVP? How you feel about the game? How you feeling? Are you drinking more Kool-Aid? Are you starting to pan out? Do you realize this is the number 3 team in the country? Do you feel like Texas is the number 3 team in the AP poll? That they're in as the college football playoff happens, they're in it right now? Do you feel good about that? Do you feel where we're at? Or do you think maybe it's a little high? Let me know on the text line, 512-337-3776. We'll talk a little bit more text when we come back, read some more of your text. We may try and get into a little NFL, talk some Cowboys. We'll get into all that when we come back here on the Horn, on the Sports Complex, on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Getting you into another week of another weekly music theme here on the Sports Complex. It is National Dog Week. I know, they have weird weeks for everything, but apparently it's the last week in September is National Dog Week, so we're playing dog songs. My dog Lou picked the theme this week. It says National Dog Week, time to play for some dogs. You know what, send me dog pictures on the text line, too. Who doesn't love dog pictures? 512-337-3776. Text line's open. We're asking you, who is the MVP for you in the Texas game? You know, it could be as easy as Quinn Ewers. Had a good game. You could go Jonathan Brooks or JT Sanders, one of your offensive leaders. You go defensive. Jalen Ford, big interception, led the team in tackles. Byron Murphy had 2 sacks and a tackle for loss, added on to that one as well. A really good game. T'Vondre Sweat actually made some big plays as well. That interior D-line did such a great job in this game. So it could have been any of that. One thing that you could say on the other end, so we're going to take all those texts. We're going to get your reactions here in a little bit, but I want to play a clip for me and Rob B this morning talking about one of the things you could look at this defense that has been somewhat of an issue, and we knew it was going to be something that Baylor was going to go after. And so it's not surprising, but it is something that they're going to need to shore up, especially against going into a Kansas game where Jalen Daniels is going to try and throw the ball. We know he's going to run, but it's also about those big pass plays and explosive plays and plays that can kill you and plays that can change the game in a second. And I think that's kind of where Texas has to worry about containing the deep ball. I believe they had a pass for 29 yards, 39 yards. Someone was a 50-something yard pass that Baylor got off in this game. We knew Sawyer Robinson liked to throw it down deep, but you still don't want to see those. So here's Ian Rob B from this morning talking about Texas and, you know, a little bit of worry about the deep ball. So we can say all of our MVP votes we're putting up there. Who you guys got for MVP? For Quinn, if it's on offense, but on defense, it's going to be that interior D-line a lot more than that secondary. Here's Ian Rob B from this morning talking about containing the deep ball.
But can I play a piece from Steve Sarkisian? His team really handled their business. That was a mature win for them, right? Went in, dominated lines of scrimmage, again, didn't turn the football over outside of the special teams gaffes. The offense didn't turn it over. Quinn Ewers isn't throwing interceptions. He's been outstanding. Showed some athleticism with the running touchdown. Jonathan Brooks continues his ascent to the RB1 status for Texas. C.J. Baxter's healthy, and he had a touchdown. They got to figure out who's going to catch punts for them and make sure they secure the punt. That's a problem, but everything else looked pretty darn good. Here's Sark after the win on where this thing is headed, where it is, and where it's going.
Well, I think we're pretty good. It's been 3 years in the making of, putting a staff together, putting a scheme together, making adjustments to that scheme from year 1 to year 2, now year 2 to year 3. I think we've added depth to that roster on the defensive side of the ball on all 3 levels at the D line, at the linebacker, and then in the secondary. I think we have really good veteran leadership on defense from front to back. And then now what comes with that is confidence. Our offense and defense, we do a lot of good on good, and they have to defend us too every day in practice and throughout training camp. And there probably wasn't many days when I went into a press conference in training camp and I didn't say our defense had a really good day today, that our front had a really good day today. So they're pretty good, and I think we can be better. That's the beauty of it. We gave up a couple deep balls tonight that we knew was a point of emphasis, so we got to get that cleaned up. But I did love their resiliency, especially in the low red and getting those stops tonight.
All right, yeah. 3-year build on the defensive side with the same coaching staff is starting to pay dividends, and got to figure out those deep balls, Rod. I mean, Ryan Watts got beaten over the top. It does feel like teams are targeting their safeties in coverage.
Yeah.
And we saw Derek Williams. They call him the Raptor, the freshman from Louisiana. He was playing more as the game went on.
I believe Pro Football Focus had Derek Williams with the most snaps at safety. That's Pro Football Focus. I didn't chart it myself, but
yeah,
that says that tells you that the Texas defensive coordinator or defensive coaches are thinking about maybe rotating some of those younger guys in more, I would say, early stages of the game to try, like you said, to offset what teams may be trying to exploit, which is the lack of speed. and the lack of coverage skills at safety.
Yeah, well,
we
listen,
see Michael Taft every week, or at least 2 possessions.
Yeah, no, they
That's
love
where-
Taft.
But
You can
the speed isn't there with him.
Yes.
And when we saw them target him
Yes.
on one of his main positions, like they threw the 2 deep balls.
Yeah.
I think 2 out of 3 plays.
Yeah.
on that drive.
It's pretty obvious that, and it's this thing. I think Texas is fine. We're being nitpicky here, but I do think because think about this. There's a couple of things that stood out in that Baylor game, right? Number one, they took Jahdae Barron off the field when they go 40 personnel, when they're dealing with heavy personnel, 12 or 21 personnel, which is 1 back, 2 tight ends, or 2 back, 1 tight ends. So if you're a team going up against Texas, you know how to take one of their best players off the field immediately. It's pretty easy. Go heavy.
yeah,
Right,
Jahdae Barron,
go with a
and there's
heavier
no-
set, and you'll take Jahdae Barron on the field. Now, what I would do if I was PK is I would just move Jahdae Barron to safety or corner, because he's better than all your other DBs. Why take him off the field just because you're going up against heavy personnel and he's at nickel? Put him at safety and put him at corner, because that would be, in my opinion, tactically a better adjustment, because they're trying to take your best player, one of your best players, off the field and attack linebackers and safeties in coverage with running backs and tight ends. I think that's going to happen in the Kansas game. And when they keep rotating safeties, they're going to be automatic audibles and checks by the Kansas offense that when Taft is in there, that we know we can go after them, and we can go after certain safeties, because we'll stay away from Catalan. We may even stay away from Jaron Thompson, but we know we have a matchup advantage going up against some of those other guys. So you may see that in this game. And, yep, you're going to see them attack Ryan Watts on the deep ball. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. And now, we just had played a team in Baylor who couldn't attack you. And we said this last week, they didn't have a strength on offense, especially with their backup quarterback and without their best running back, Dominic Richardson. And their offensive line was no match for Texas. That was clear. Kansas is a ranked team now. They're 4-0, and they've got 3 different receivers that are over 170 yards already this year. They've got quarterbacks. They can attack your weakness, and they can attack that and set up, and as you talk about formationally, with their head coach Lance Leipold, they will attack your safeties, and you can play great everywhere else, but if they protect and they get the coverage they want, we saw it against Alabama, we saw it with Baylor this week that
Wyoming did it. Wyoming went after them a little bit.
They did. So I love your point about, as I said, I was doing the Inside Texas Watch with us as always, and thanks to everybody that tuned in.
Great job.
That. Thank you. You joined me for the entire second quarter, which is a lot of fun to talk about the game with you as it's happening, which you can watch on YouTube on Texas Football Channel for Inside Texas. I said, Rod, there's no way that you're a better team or defense with Jahdae Barron on the sideline.
No way. It's just no.
That's not possible. He's one of your 3 best defensive players, and just because he's not a linebacker and they're going heavy, I understand it. I mean, it's a conundrum, but at the same time, if you're an opposing team, you're like, hey, look, we can go 2 tight ends, and we're going to get Jahdae Barron off the field.
Yeah, right. That's great. That's a win right there. And my thing was, it's simple. Ryan Watts, I'm not saying Ryan Watts is a liability, but if teams are picking on him, then take Ryan Watts out and just put Jahdae Barron in that corner.
Well, let's hear Sark. He was asked about rotating guys on defense, and Sark believes it keeps his team fresher, and they've got good players here, Sark, on that belief, and will it continue?
We rotated a lot of guys tonight on defense again, and that's a credit to the defensive staff of getting all those guys ready. The defensive front, most notably, but there was David Benda played well to go along with Anthony Hill, had a really good game. Derek Williams was in there, had a couple really nice third down stops. And so playing multiple people is only going to be beneficial for us, not only in game, but for the long haul. And so the fact that we can do that up front, that's huge, that our guys can be fresh when they're in there and they can make plays at critical moments.
All right, but this Kansas team schematically, and as the week goes on, Rod will take you deep dive on the scheme and how Kansas is just so dynamic with what they do with their passing game, their running game, their formations. Much like Sark, they a lot of motion, and they tax you in every way, and and maybe as talented as an offense, because watching Oklahoma, they're better offensively this year, but they're not as dynamic as Kansas at this point.
Isn't that crazy to say?
I know. Well, Lance Leipold's done an incredible job. He's done an incredible
really
job. And that'll be a storyline as the week progresses.
There you go. That is some good stuff there talking about Texas and a little bit of their issues with stopping those deep passes that could turn out to be. And they weren't this week. Luckily, Texas was able to shut them down. And once you get in that red zone, that kind of is out the window. So it's those plays that in the Alabama game were touchdowns. They were able to get the ball a little bit further downfield, and Jalen Daniels is that type of guy who may be able to get you. They have a little bit better athletes at Kansas. They may be able to get those touchdowns out of that. And that's kind of in Sark's playbook. That's kind of Sark's handbook 101 is trying to get a quick score and really change momentum in a game. Kansas is going to try and do that. So you're going to have to work this whole week. PK has done a great job this season. A great job this season with the defense. They're playing as well as any third-year defensive coordinator has been in Texas for a very long time. But you still have to worry about those deep passes. Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Robbie. Weekday mornings right here on the Horn, 6 to 11 every weekday morning. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we will get into some of your texts, talking about the Patrick Big Fat poll today. Who was your MVP for Texas versus Baylor? Is it Quinn Ewers, Jonathan Brooks, JT Sanders on the offensive end? Are you going defense? Jalen Ford gets that big interception. Byron Murphy, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss. Somebody else. You got somebody else that you think is the MVP. Hit us up on the text line. Give us your reviews. And, if you still got dog picks, it is National Dog Week. So if you got dog picks, send them in. I like seeing them. I can't read them on the air, but I can see them. It'll make me happy. Send those in. We're going to come back here. Get to your text on 512-337-3776 is the text line. We'll get to those right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon. Some Johnny Cash there for you. It is National Dog Week, so we're playing dog songs all week long. You can text in your dog pictures, 512-337-3776. We're getting them in. I enjoy it. Makes my day better seeing all your dog pictures, 512-337-3776. Go ahead and text in. Who is your MVP for Texas versus Baylor? Have you got any viewpoints you want to share about the Texas game? And we're going to get into some NFL in the 6 o'clock hour as well. So if you got some NFL takes, I know Cowboys fans may not like their quarterback, may not like their coach, may not like some other things. Text in 512-337-3776. Let's get to the text line. Let's get to some of you guys' texts. We asked about the MVP. We got a Jonathan Brooks here. It's a good one. Really, the entirety of the interior D-line, Byron Murphy. Yeah, I agree. I'm putting Byron Murphy just because statistically he had the best game, but that interior D-line kind of just did whatever they wanted in that game, and it was big. Was Baxter limping? Yeah, he has been a little bit banged up this season. That's why Jonathan Brooks, who originally had not earned the starting job, got in, and I think he finally saw that urgency that he needed to go and take the starting job. He has played really, really well the last 3 weeks since C.J. Baxter got kind of beat up a little bit in that Alabama game. You know, it's a big difference to go from high school football to playing against Alabama. And so, it's taking a little bit of time. During the season, it's hard to recover when you're doing everything, especially, a freshman trying to adapt to college life. All of that can be a lot. So he'll be back sooner. And I think as far as we know, we didn't get another report on it this week, but I know that Sark is trying to bring him back and get him more involved in the game. Quinn, he looked like an absolute rock star out there. Seemed comfortable in using his head with reading defenses. And LOL at Baylor's defense. Look, Baylor's defense, the players weren't there. The scheme is still pretty good, but they were able to pick it apart. But I like it. Quinn Ewers did what he needed to do. This was a defense that has given Quinn Ewers problems in the past. So I do appreciate that they were able to show up and play well against Quinn Ewers. We get next 2 weeks will tell us, but as of right now, they played a lot tougher competition than Georgia and Michigan. OSU shouldn't be 4. Florida State is better in the interior defensive line for Murphy and Sweat. I agree. Look, I get that Ohio State being 4 is kind of crazy after, barely eking out a win over Notre Dame. Notre Dame was a good team. I think I had Notre Dame winning that game. I'm not sure if they're number 4. They'll get knocked down, though. And I think, that's one of those ones where they're playing number 2 Michigan at some point in the season. Michigan does look really, really good. I know they haven't played a big game yet. They will in the Big 12 schedule. Georgia's Georgia. I'm fine with leaving Georgia up there until someone knocks them off their pedestal. I'm fine with it because I want Texas to get that same respect. I think they should be playing more non-conference games, but, teach their own. I'll give Alabama credit. They scheduled us. Give them some credit. Doesn't feel like we should be number 3. Maybe 10 to 15 have PTSD from believing too soon. That's why I asked. Does it feel like they're the number 3 team in the country? It just doesn't feel like it. I think they should be. I don't know who should be ranked ahead of them. I mean, Oregon's doing well, but I wouldn't put them. I think Texas. You played a hard challenge against Alabama. Alabama gets the win against Ole Miss this weekend. It's not pretty, but they get the win, which means Texas still should be up there. They scheduled a hard non-conference game. They played it. They went into the first Big 12 week and handled business. They should be number 3. It just doesn't feel like it for some reason. I don't know. I'm more worried about Kansas than Oklahoma. If Oklahoma plays against Texas the way they played against Kansas, they will get owned in Dallas. Yeah, I think Oklahoma has not played. Oklahoma hasn't looked great this year against decent teams, so I think Texas is going to be a question of, can Texas offense not make mistakes and just kind of move down? If you can run the ball and Jonathan Brooks is there, C.J. Baxter, I know Sark has been game planning that one. It's one where any injury, he says, I just want him back for Oklahoma. So I know Kansas is a big game this week. He talked about it not going ahead and jumping ahead to a trap game. We don't want to get into that. I get it. But, I think Kansas is going to be Jalen Daniels. Whenever you have an electrifying player like that, you do have to be a little bit more worried about it. We'll get more into Kansas as the week goes on for sure. It is National Daughters Day as well. So I do appreciate you sitting in the daughters. I can't ask for daughters' pictures. It seems really, really creepy for a 39-year-old man sitting in a room doing a sports show to ask for daughter pictures. I don't need those. The dog pictures I can ask for. But you do have beautiful young daughters and some beautiful dogs there as well. I love the pictures coming in. Some cute dogs coming in on the text line, just making me happy. I appreciate the dog. The whole D line was MVP. I'm good with giving it to Murphy if we have to choose one. Murphy's just the guy who had the 2 sacks, so it kind of puts him up there. He had the most tackles from the D line, I believe. Jalen Ford had the most tackles in the game, but on the D line, Byron Murphy had 2. He had 2 sacks and a tackle for loss. That's for a Texas team that, you know, there were seasons where we didn't have a 2-3 sack guy. Like for a whole season, we were not getting any coverage. It's great to see somebody get 2 in a game. So I appreciate that. Man, these dog pictures are making me happy on a Monday. You know, you get this case of the Mondays, and then you get the D-lines. Brother, it's hard to be a Cowboys fans. Cowboy gonna Cowboy every year. Yeah, we're gonna get into the Cowboys. I want to hear more from you Cowboys fans too. I want to hear rational Cowboys fans discussion. When we come back, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we'll get more text messages, 512-337-3776. We will talk some NFL. I'll get into my viewpoints of the Cowboys, where they're at. I'd love to hear yours. I would love to hear if you were officially if you're still on the Dak thing, or maybe this is more systematic than Dak. And you know what? If you're going to tell me Dak is bad, I want you to give me a realistic quarterback. And when I say realistic, Gardner Minshew is not realistic. Cooper Rush is not realistic. Those are not guys that are going to win you a Super Bowl. I want a quarterback that you feel could win you a Super Bowl. Because I know you can say Dak's not there and the money and all that, but I want you tell me who you're going to get. Tell me who you can trade for. Is you ready to move to Trey Lance already? Tell me. If you don't like Dak, I want to hear a solution. Solutions oriented on the sports complex. I love it, though. You guys are killing on the text line, 512-337-3776. Text that in. Keep sending in your MVPs from the game, takeaways from Texas, takeaways from the Cowboys. If you're a Texans fan, just come celebrate. We're going to be celebrating Andrew Beck, talking the NFL. Any other takes you got on sports from the weekend, hit us at 512-337-3776. We'll be right back on the hour 2 of the Sports Complex here on a Monday on the Horn, 101.9 and 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 on the Sports Complex in the Horn on a Monday afternoon. Still talking some Texas football. A lot more texts. You guys are killing it. 512-337-3776. The show is so much more fun when you guys get involved. So thank y'all for texting in. We're talking about MVPs from the game, your takeaways from Texas. Do you feel they're the number 3 team in the country? Does it soaked in? They're number 3 in one games. Number 3, they're still there going into a big game with Kansas this weekend. So whatever you want to talk about. And it's also National Dog Week. There's dog pictures all weekend long. I love seeing those. We'll also get into some NFL. The good news, Texans won. Bad news, we know what happened in Arizona. So, but I want your take. That one on the text line. I want to hear you guys if you're still on board with this Cowboys team. I want to know if you're still riding, you still feel the same way, or if the shine is off of it now. I don't know. The defense, that was a big thing. You lose Trayvon Diggs, and it looked like you lost multiple players. The offense lost some guys, but yeah, look, that looked like it was much more than Trayvon Diggs. And apparently Josh Dobbs is keeping receipts and tweeting stuff out now, or TikToking stuff out. I have to go look at that. I haven't seen what it is. Apparently that's the case. Also news, if you're fantasy or if you're gambling man, I saw that Joe Burrow is active for tonight. That Joe Burrow is supposed to be in the game, so that's something to take away as Monday Night Football kicks off. We'll get into that as well. Let's get back to your text messages, though. Join the conversation, 512-337-3776. I texted in Friday and said the score would be 38-17. I'm glad the defense proved me wrong. I'm glad they did, too. I had, I believe, 45-17, I think is what I had, which, you don't muff 2 punts. You probably can get another touchdown in there. I thought that one of those big plays that Baylor got a big pass play over the top would have turned into a touchdown instead of a field goal. They got 2 field goals. The defense, and honestly, if we don't have those muff punts, then, maybe it's even less points. The defense looked really good except for those big plays over the top. There was 3 of them. 3 out of the whole game isn't terrible. Just something you need to shore up when you're going into some better teams, better passers, better offenses. Something to shore up. But, yeah, I like that, Victor. You're good. You got the offense. You nailed the offense, 38. Good job on that one. You have JT, don't call me Deion Sanders was MVP. Look, Deion Sanders, a Hall of Fame player. Not a problem to be called that. People are going after him today. Going after Deion Sanders today and yesterday, Saturday nights. They've been going after Deion. They've been waiting for that one to go after him. I'm not, I don't want to give him any more receipts. Let him go. Let's say the Pac-12 hasn't played anybody. Utah barely beat Baylor. Oregon barely beat over Tech. Yeah, I agree that there is some something about the number 3 team. The Pac-12 is so massively. They didn't really play that many big preseason non-conference games, and they are just, the rankings have them so good for a conference that's not going to exist next year. People are really sending them out on a high note. Not as much love for the Big 12, but yeah, they are not. There's a ton of love. The fact that Washington State and Oregon State were both ranked in that game is ridiculous. They should not have both been ranked for not playing anybody, and we knew what the outcome was going to be, and it was. So, yeah, I'm not with that one. You also have play calling was odd at times, but the early throws were not difficult. Let's see what we got here. It's great to be a Packers fan. Man, that Jordan Love thing has magically changed Green Bay fans' minds. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing. That's why that's why they just play smart football and just say, "Hey man, let's go get a new guy." He may not be a superstar. You don't always need a superstar. Cowboys fans think you need a superstar, but you don't always need one. Tom Brady. Are you actually saying Tom Brady is going to come back to the NFL? He's going to unretire to play in Mike McCarthy's offense? You out of your mind? There's no way Tom Brady would ever set foot near a Mike McCarthy offense. Now, if he gets him fired and he just brings in, he's his own offensive coordinator. He calls the plays and goes out there and plays them. Maybe Jerry can go get him then. I don't know if I'm bringing Tom Brady to this Cowboys team though. If I'm Jerry Jones, I don't know if I have the money to pull that one off. It's not Dak, it's McCarthy. If he's not given a Hall of Fame QB, he sucks ostrich eggs, is what he says. Like that, I watched that Andrew Beck play. Casually root for the Texas teams, a Raiders fan at heart. Seeing a fullback run to the house was awesome. It was awesome. It was very awesome. It is the Mike McCarthy thing, I do. And we'll get into this in a second. I'm going to read a couple more. We got a couple more texts here on the text line. 512-337-3776. Do you really want Kirk Cousins? It's not any better. I promise you it's not any better. It's the same thing. Because and there's some other problems that this Dallas Cowboys team has. We'll just get into it, all right? We'll get into it, and I'll keep reading. We'll keep going to your text, though. 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776 is the text line. Cowboys don't need a superstar. They just need a game manager that won't throw bad picks. I agree. He shouldn't have also been in that position. Mike McCarthy just called really bad plays in the red zone, and he needed a guy to bail him out. But this is kind of where my problem was, too. I don't know if this team is bought into Mike McCarthy's offense, and I don't know why. I'm not going to blame that 100% on him, but CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks didn't seem interested in a lot of plays. There was a lot of plays where they seemed a little bit like they came off the route and they knew they weren't in the progression, or they knew that the coverage was going to be on them, and they seemed to kind of break it out. And especially in the red zone, it did not seem like CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks were as involved as they needed to be in those possessions. Brandon Cooks had 7 targets and 2 receptions. It's not all his fault, but also you kind of want to see these guys a little bit more bought in and a little bit more pushing. Those things, to me, that's kind of where, and it's 1-5 in the red zone. That's for me what the Cowboys game was it didn't ever seem like this Cowboys team was up for it. It didn't seem like they were ready to go. And look, I'll tell you, the receivers too, that's partly on Dak. He's the leader of this team. We know he's a million times better leader than Mike McCarthy is. So we know that he can go out there. Everybody says that Dak Prescott is one of the best leaders in the NFL. I don't know where the disconnect is. I don't know if they don't feel that the offense is too much running now, that they're going to Tony Pollard. Rico Dowdle had an okay game. They didn't use him a ton, but when they did, he had some good plays. Tony Pollard had an okay game, did okay, got over 100 yards rushing. It just seemed that you need to have your star players be stars, and Dak's not the star player. Dak's a good quarterback. He's not a star, but you need him to be a star like how Kirk Cousins has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and those guys are getting open. And then you have your third guy, KJ Osborne, who had some big plays. And look, Michael Gallup had a good game, but this is the same crap that was happening with Kellen Moore that was never good. It's not a good game plan to have your third wide receiver be your leader in receiving. It's just not a good winning game plan. Because there's a reason he's open. It's because he's usually not taking the deepest route, so he's going to get more receptions. He's going to get, you can pick and choose with him, but you're not going to have the explosive plays you're going to need to have in these games to not get yourself stuck in red zone possessions where you're not doing anything big in red zones. He may not be able to make that big catch at the goal line that a CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Cooks is supposed to make. That's the problem, is Mike McCarthy has everything set up, and he's just falling back to that same thing where Dak Prescott is going to go be the quarterback he is, which is this is the safest progression is Michael Gallup for 10 yards. That's the safest progression, so I'm going to throw it out there. And unless you build an offense where you're really catering to Dak, which is what you need to do, and I know it sounds stupid, but if you're telling me that you're going to pay a guy, $50 million, $50 million, and you're not going to focus on making the game plan around him because he's got to play to the coach who's making $8 million. I like it's dollars and cents. I know you're talking about different things and different markets for these guys, but the reality is Mike McCarthy needs to plan around Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is your quarterback. You throw out any play that doesn't work for Dak Prescott. Throw any play that CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks aren't going to be invested on and that you're not trying to get them the ball. Michael Gallup, it's great, but you cannot be your number one guy. If he's your number one guy, you're going to lose more games with him being your number one receiver than win. So you have to be able to build up your star players and build around your star players. One thing that Coach Sark does really well is focus on his stars. He does it too much sometimes. But I'll take that over the alternative, which is just taking what they give, just take it, and then you get in the red zone and you kick another field goal. Or you go for it on fourth and don't get it because they know what you're going to do because you're playing a predictable style. I thought he did a really good job when the defense was dominating. I thought he did a good job of just not messing it up. It's all he had to do in those first games was not mess it up. And then the defense started to struggle, and you had to carry your weight, and he couldn't carry his weight because he pulled an offense that's for Aaron Rodgers, who's a really, really good quarterback. Not Dak Prescott. And he stuck him in situations where he needed wide receivers to get massive separation without the rubs, without anything of setting things up. You just have to set your Dak up to win, And I get that's not right, but look, Justin Fields is in the same position in Chicago, where we saw Justin Fields. He's made some plays, and now they're game planning for him. It's going to be harder. He's not going to be great. But look, for everybody who hates Justin Fields, you cannot tell me that Jeff Fisher ruined Vince Young, but Justin Fields is the worst quarterback. Because at a certain point, it may just be coaching, and both guys are getting a raw shake. We know Justin Fields isn't going to be, MVP anytime soon. He doesn't look as good as Lamar Jackson does. But at the same point, if you give him a coach who wants to accentuate his positives, as opposed to trying to make him the guy that the coach wants to have, look at what Mike McDaniel is doing with Tua. Tua was done. Tua was so depressed and so angry. Mike McDaniel had to build him back up. From being a nervous wreck and thought his career and thought he would never be the guy. And he put up a 70 spot. They had to stop going. They had to stop trying. Because that's how good that offense is working. Because Mike McDaniel accentuates the positives. Kyle Shanahan's got Brock Purdy. You think Brock Purdy is the best quarterback? No. But Kyle Shanahan runs an offense that accentuates the positives. And you hire a coach who wants to come in and his playbook matters more than the players. And that's a dumb way to work in the NFL. Because unless you have all of the best players and you somehow drafted and stole the best player in every draft, you're not going to have that. But you can take a guy like Tua, who a couple years ago wasn't going to have his contract extended, wasn't even going to get through his rookie contract. They weren't even going to give him the 5th year. They said, no, Tua's probably done. That experiment's over. We may have to rebuild in Miami. And they put up a 70 spot. I know there's injury concerns, but Mike McDaniel is a coach who accentuates. He went out and put a game plan together. What did he do when he got there? He put together a tape and a DVD or whatever video. I don't know whatever format he used. But he used something to show Tua all his good plays. Said, no, we're going to do this. Because I went and watched all your game film, and I know what you did. We didn't lie about it like Mike McCarthy did, who he said he knew all of Dak's game film, said he watched every play and broke it down. That was a lie. Didn't do that. And now he's suffering for it because he's watching what Dak does and goes, oh, well, you made the wrong play. No, you called the wrong play. That guy's going to be there. Cooper Rush ain't your quarterback. Trey Lance ain't going to be there because he ain't going to call plays for Trey Lance either. If the defense needs help, because there's going to be teams, and you're going up against a coach. You're going up against a coach who knew you, who coached for the Eagles last year, who knows everything about you because they game planned for you hard for the last couple of years. He knows everything about the Cowboys, and he knew how to attack this defense, and he knew Trayvon Diggs was out. He said, all right, Josh Dobbs, all I got to do, and he built a game plan. They built a game plan around what Josh Dobbs could do. Dak Prescott can do a lot. He's not going to be great. I don't expect him to be an MVP. I don't expect half the quarterbacks in the league to be in an MVP conversation. I don't need that for him. But I need you to game plan around what he does, and you just won't do it. This was what I said, what I say on Friday. This is a Mike McCarthy game. Does he call a game plan that works? And no, he didn't. And that's the problem. You don't have CeeDee Lamb invested. You don't have Brandon Cooks invested in this offense, which, man, you trade for Brandon Cooks. You got CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is a beast. And he did not seem to care that much. Brandon Cooks, 2 receptions out of 7 targets. You threw the ball to Ferguson, to targets-wise, 7 targets. For Gallup, 7 targets. For CeeDee Lamb, 7 targets. For Ferguson, 7 targets for Brandon Cooks. I love it. It's balanced. It's great. That's great. Get your star players a few more targets, man. I get it. I get like you got to check down, but Michael Gallup should not have 7 if CeeDee Lamb has 7 targets. He shouldn't. Your number 3 guy shouldn't. I get progressions. I get how this works. I get it. You need to help. You need to win the battle of coaching. And you lost to a guy that we all made fun of because he sounded like an idiot at the beginning. I took the bus in and we're going to win and all that crap that he said at the beginning for the Cardinals. It worked. He's a worse speaker than you, Mike McCarthy, and he still beat you because he game planned better. So I'm not blaming this one on Dak. It's a Mike McCarthy loss. I know Dak threw the interception at the end. There was no one open. There was nothing there. It was a bad play call. It was a bad position to put him in. It should have been 3rd and 6 when you're in there. You can run the ball when everybody's backed up because you're threatening to throw the ball deep. It's hard when you get in the red zone. Hey, run some schemes. Don't just try and do the best thing. I get you had 3 offensive linemen out. So what's your game plan when you have 3 offensive linemen that are hurt and you say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and just still try and run power the ball in the red zone when everything's backed up and we're going against, power packages and all that. We're just going to keep running the ball. It's not going to work. I don't know why you thought it was. Look, and I'll tell you the other side. Because look, I get it. This is not the end of the season for the Cowboys. A lot of stuff is fixable. But this is that Jerry Jones thing that happens over and over again where you base it all on hope. And you hope that all your players are the best players and you hope everything works and you don't go that extra edge and try and bring in new people and you didn't hire another offensive coordinator. You brought in same old guys and the same old thing and the old boys got together and they put together a game plan and they're going to blame Dak Prescott for it at the end of the year. And they're going to re-sign him and they're going to blame him. And they'll win 10 to 12 games, get knocked out in the first or second round. If they play like this. I hope they play much better. I hope Mike McCarthy starts to figure it out. I hope he starts to feature CeeDee Lamb. I hope he starts to try and draw plays to get Dak Prescott in more comfort and get him a little bit better and not do the same thing that we just saw didn't work last year, putting him in positions where it's 3rd and long in the red zone and you can't do it. Don't put him in those positions. Did you not watch last year's? I know you lied about watching the other stuff. Talking about good stuff. Talking about the good stuff. Texans did get a win. Man, as a Texans fan, going back to the Texans, I know I walked away from the Texans. I walked away. Cal McNair pissed me off. Bill O'Brien pissed me off. I hated that. They traded DeAndre Hopkins for nothing. It's a bunch of people who thought they knew better than they did. You ousted GM because his wife got cancer. Classy move from the Texans. But all right, but I'm back. I'm back on the Texans. Cal McNair's turning around. You got D'Amico Ryans. Bobby Slowick hasn't been calling great plays. Bobby Slowick starts calling the plays this week. He still didn't get Dameon Pierce the way he needed to in the running game. He was able to get him in the receiving game get a little bit better, right? The Texans are able to. This is the best game Bobby Slowick has called by a long margin. And it was able to, in part of, look, they own the Jags. I don't know why they do. But they were able to get him going. They were able to get this Texans team going. They were able to make it work. And man, this is the week. In week 3, you trade a lot. And Arizona is counting on the Texans to be bad because they're not tanking. They don't seem to be tanking. I know they lost those 2 games, but they don't seem to be tanking because they just took out the Cowboys. So they want that Texans pick to be up there to try and go get somebody. If they're not going to bring back Kyler, if they want to get Caleb Williams, they need the Texans to be bad. Those 2 picks, you gave up a lot to get. A lot. Will Anderson gets that blocked field goal. C.J. Stroud, 3 games, no interceptions, puts up big numbers. Looking good out there, making the right decisions. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this Texans team. I'm liking what I'm seeing from C.J. Stroud. I wasn't sure about it. We've seen Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young will be fine. They are having the issues with they can't run the quarterback sneak. Don't call quarterback sneaks then. Find another thing. And you're not going to be Jalen Hurts. I know it's an easy play to call. Run the ball. Figure out something else. You're paid millions of dollars to be a coach. Can't figure it out. But Bobby Slowick is improving. That gives me a lot of hope for this Texans team because Bobby Slowick, those first couple game plans, he kept getting away from the run. In this game, it felt like he was getting away from it, but at points what you saw was he just kind of went to the really quick game and the short passes and got C.J. Stroud and got the ball moving and got him out of those 3rd and longs a lot of time. This offensive line is still beat up. Laramie Tunsil's still out. When this O-line comes back, the way C.J. Stroud is playing, there's a lot of hope. Tank Dell is dominating as a wide receiver. I took him in all my fantasy leagues. Last pick of all my fantasy leagues, Tank Dell. Told you that guy was going to be good with a good connection with C.J. Stroud. Looking really good. We got to take a break. I got to drink some water. I'm losing my voice already, yelling about Mike McCarthy, making me angry, sweating on a Monday. I shouldn't be sweating on a Monday because Mike McCarthy doesn't know how to call plays for a regular quarterback. Shouldn't be in the head coach in the NFL. Just give Dan Quinn. Go find somebody. I guarantee you, there's an assistant somewhere on a coaching staff that you could get to call plays, and he would be better by week 7 than what Mike McCarthy is. All right, keep texting it. 512-337-3776. You can send in dog picks if you want. I like those. Those are fun today. Tell me who your MVP is for Texas. Tell me what you thought about this weekend in the NFL, what you thought about it in college football, anything you want to hit up in the next segment. We got 2 more segments before we get out of here. Send out what you got on the text line, 512-337-3776. Send it in. Let's talk on the text line. I want to get back to some of those texts, get some more Texans, some more games. We'll get into a little NFL, get you a Monday Night Football preview. We got a game already started. I don't have it on the TV. I'll put it on, see where we're at. We'll get to that here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on a Monday afternoon. Some Nazareth Hair of the Dog for you. It's National Dog Week, so we're playing dog songs all week long. I know this isn't really about dogs, it's about the hair of the dog, but it's good enough for me. Good enough for me to sing some Nazareth on a Monday. We do have kickoff in Monday Night Football. The first of the two games, Eagles and Tampa Bay. Two 2-0 teams. Baker Mayfield, 2-0. Tampa Bay, they're tied right now, 0-0, but Baker is driving. Baker's driving. He's going for it. Let's go over. I did get a couple good texts here. We did get talk about the Texans from UPS Phil. Wish the Texans took Bijan to go along with CJ. QB's best friend is a running back. Look, I think I would have loved, of course, I would love to have Bijan on the Texans. Will Anderson is looking like he's a really good pick on the defensive end. I'll tell you, hiring a defensive head coach, it felt like even though that Will Anderson was picked 3 and CJ Stroud was picked 2, that was because of the trade value. That basically if they drafted Will Anderson with 2 and CJ Stroud was still on the table, they would have to give up more to Arizona for that pick because other teams may be trying to go up and get CJ Stroud. So they take the quarterback there, and then there's still 3 or 4 good defensive ends available on the board. So teams would maybe not go for them as much. So you get them for a little bit better value. You weren't competing with as many players. But I think Will Anderson was the pick no matter what. They wanted Will Anderson to build that D-line up. I think he's going to be a good pick. So you couldn't get Will Anderson, CJ Stroud, and Bijan Robinson. Dameon Pierce, too, had a really good rookie season. With the amount of injuries they have on the O-line, that has definitely hurt him. I don't think Bobby Slowick's quite got the run game down to where it needs to be yet. That's going to be something he's going to have to build on for this Texans team. You're going to have to get Dameon Pierce involved in that offense a little bit more. Singletary actually ran the ball better than Pierce did. But if you put Bijan on that team, I love it. I just don't think it was ever really an option for the Texans that they were able to look at. Plus, you're not taking Bijan 2 or 3 either. I think him going at 7 blew a lot of people's minds. Clearly, it looks like he's worth it. He's been having a good season so far. So, but I like that one. Thank you, UPS Phil. And if you could talk Texas again, got a question. Who are some comparable coaches in any sport to Lance Leipold in terms of turning around a lackluster program with no fan interest this quickly? Stadium has gotten bigger. They are getting recruits, etc. So this is, you could say Chris Beard at Texas Tech for basketball. But the basic thing is, he's doing what Deion Sanders did. He just is not doing it as flashy. But this is transfer portal and NIL. This is what happened in Kansas. They kept trying to hire coaches, but getting recruits out of high school for Kansas as a football program was just really, really hard. So he was able to go in the transfer portal and get some guys that were from smaller schools that maybe didn't get those recruits, didn't get the option to go to some bigger schools, and go get some guys that are disillusioned because they weren't getting playing time somewhere else. And, there's a big difference of what people think of the college experience from 16 years old, a junior in high school when this program, when the experience is kind of starting, to 19 years old, a year or two in college, 19, 20 years old. It's a gigantic difference in perspective just in age alone. But man, maybe you don't like where you're at, but maybe you don't like the college. Maybe you don't like the experience. Maybe you don't like maybe you don't like the coach that's there anymore. Maybe you don't like, that you feel like you're not getting a right chance. And if you can go to Kansas where you can go play and he's able to kind of pick in the transfer portal and get those guys, I think that escalated the program very quickly. And he was able to go get boosters and donors. And that's a huge part. When you got people that Kansas spends the money in basketball, they started to spend the money in football. He's been able to turn this program around in a quick way. And he's doing it smarter than other people that, Mike Gundy right now is losing that battle because he doesn't want to go to donors. They lost their big donor. He passed away, but he doesn't want to be that guy. He wants to be a football coach. I get it, but college football has changed. It's now a business. And I think that there's guys that are going the other way. Dabo Swinney, we saw, had an okay game. It was a rough game to see him continually get sadder and sadder in the in-game interviews and the post-game. That I think he realizes that there's problems. Cade Klubnik had a better game. I thought he did a lot better in that Clemson game, but still not enough. You have to play the portal. You have to play NIL game. Lance Leipold's doing that, and that's why that team is having a turnaround. Not to mention he's a good coach. all that to say he can actually coach them on the field too. But I think it's, and part of that's building a culture, and that culture is a winning culture of, just getting everybody on the same page, getting everybody on board. And I think when you build a guy of kind of second chance guys and guys who feel disrespected because, whether or not Kansas was not their first choice, they can feel like, hey, man, we got something to prove, and he can get them fired up and ready to go. And you get a guy in Jalen Daniels who, man, that guy wants to show that he's worth something and that he can go play. When you buy a chain with your own highlights on him, that guy wants to show it. Let's keep sending the text, 512-337-3776. If you got anything you want to talk about. Some other good NFL stuff that happened this weekend. We talked a little bit about it. The Dolphins put up a 70 spot on the Broncos. The Broncos are realizing something that I think Sean Payton knew, but maybe wasn't, maybe lying to himself. And he was hoping that Russell Wilson was going to be a different guy. He was hoping he was going to be able to change the culture that quick. He came in with the attitude. I don't think he necessarily put in the effort to change the culture that quick. He kind of came in and did lip service, and I don't think he was boots on the ground enough necessarily of how bad that culture has been in Denver now for a while, since they were winning those Super Bowls with Peyton Manning, that it just kind of fell off. And, you're not getting guys. They keep getting injured, and then the rehabs take forever, and it hasn't been a positive culture in Denver in a while. I don't think he really understood how bad it was. I think if they stay with him, with all the money they're paying him, I can't imagine they're not. You're going to have to try and move on from Russell Wilson as best you can. I don't know if they're going to let him do that this year or next year, but you're going to have to try and do something else, because I just think that is kind of a dark cloud over the whole Broncos right now. But yeah, that's putting up 70 spot. That's not on Russell Wilson. That's not on the offense. That is on Denver's defense, and they got to figure out some things. And Mike McDaniel, one of my favorite coaches, he was one that I would have loved to have at the Texans when he was still in San Francisco. I've always liked what the offense and what he calls. Devon Achane coming out in that game, just having a coming out party. That guy you knew was going to be good in a Mike McDaniel offense. When you talk about track stars and he's a fast running back like that, the way he could play. By the way, if you ever want to see the difference between Jimbo Fisher and a good coach, I don't want to say it. Jimbo Fisher's a fine coach. He's just not a great college play caller in 2023. Let's go with that. If you want to see the difference between that, see what Mike McDaniel's able to do with Achane. Chargers beat the Vikings 28-24 in a battle of who was going to drop to 0-3. It's the Vikings. The Vikings, I've said, made a terrible game plan. I don't know why they got rid of Dalvin Cook without another game plan. Madison's not the guy. This is his best game. Madison's best game running the ball. But they just don't seem to have a game plan other than chunking the ball all game long. It's like it feels like one of those Rockets teams where they're like, the analytics tell us this should work, and everyone with a brain and two eyes tells you it's not going to work. And everything has to go perfectly right for the analytics to make it sense. You go, no, the analytics work because people play defense against you differently. So once you go all the way in, the analytics change, because that's how life works. If you're only going to throw the ball, then that means they're going to play much more pass defense because they know you're just going to throw the ball. So it changes the results of the play. But for some reason, they didn't think that far ahead in that. They've gone full on. I don't know what the solution there is in one season. I mean, you didn't spend enough money on your O-line to get a good running O-line. You tried to run the ball more this week. I get that. Brandon Staley keeps his job, even though in a win, I still think Brandon Staley should be fired after that game. For going for it on your own 24 when you're up 4 points. One of the dumbest things you've ever seen. No, I thought if we got that, we control the clock. Just punt the ball. Make them come back down the field on you. Going for it on fourth down and then not getting it. Just another bad decision, a line of them from Brandon Staley. And yeah, that's text. Vikings won 8 games by a score last year. And that's the thing. They were able to win those games. And that's something you thought maybe was going to be a trend going forward, that they'd be better at it. But, and like this one, they got handed it. Brandon Staley went for it on fourth down on their own 24. Didn't get it. You're down 4. You get a shot, and you still couldn't come in with it. Chicago, Carolina lose again. They're going to be, I think that's going to be a battle right there. You know, I feel bad for Roschon. He's getting some playing time there with Herbert. It seems like Foreman is not really playing at all. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but he doesn't look like he's getting a lot of run there. I think you got to Elberflus needs to figure out what's going on in Chicago. That is a you know, with all the outside noise, you really need to kind of make a loud, definitive statement if you're Chicago, and I don't think they're doing that. I think they're trying to just let it pass, but you're going to have to make that decision on Justin Fields pretty soon if that's going to be your guy or not. And it seems like coaching-wise, you don't want him to be the guy. So that's Carolina. I think will be okay. They're going to, you know, it's going to take a little while to build, just like the Texans are. I'm not as worried about that one. Tonight on Monday Night Football. If you got predictions on Monday Night Football, you got any props, anything you want to send on the text line, 512-337-3776. We do have the game going on right now. 3:21 left in the first. Philadelphia has the ball now. Still 0-0. Defensive struggle. I'm curious to see how the running backs go in this game. We know DeAndre Swift had a great game. DeAndre Swift always seemed like a really good running back. The Lions move on from him because they get Jahmyr Gibbs. Probably should have kept him, but they move on because they wanted to get a more balanced system. They felt Gibbs and Swift were too similar. Has a huge game last week. He's already got 36 yards on 4 carries this week. So he's already playing well. Kenneth Gainwell's got one carry for -1 yards. I don't know. They said they were going to run the hot hand. It feels like the guy who's averaging 9 yards a carry right now is got a hotter hand than the guy that's got 1 rush for negative. DeAndre Swift fantasy owners, I know, really want this to go the way they want it to go. This feels Eagles just get a get a field goal up, so it is 3-0 Eagles. Now this seems like Eagles. They're favored by 5.5. I know the Buccaneers have played okay. Baker Mayfield's had a good season so far, but I just don't feel I feel like that's been somewhat of competition. So I got the Eagles winning that one. And Rams at Bengals. Joe Burrow is as active, last I read, unless it's changed. Hit me up on the text line if it has. Rams and Bengals, -3. This feels like the Bengals got to get one, right? They got to go. They can't go 0-3, right? Man, if I was hurt, the last guy I'd want to go up against, if I'm Joe Burrow, says, man, I can come back from 0-3, but if Aaron Donald hits me 6 or 7 times, we get the Geno Smith, oh my God, I may not be coming back. If I'm the Bengals, I know it's Monday Night Football. I may sit him out. Let him get another little bit of rest because you got a short week now next week to get him back if they're playing Aaron Donald. It's Aaron Donald. I don't know about that. Whew, seems scary. All right, I'm going to take one more break. You got any more text for us? 512-337-3776 is the text line. Hit us up if you got anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here. We're going to give you a little MLB update, get you ready. The Rangers do play on the station tonight. The pregame starts at 8 p.m., though, so not cutting in to the sports complex. They will be on at 8 p.m. tonight. A big series for the Rangers, big series for the Astros. We'll talk about that. We come back here. And any of your texts on the text line, 512-337-3776, right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Wrapping things up here on the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon. Thanks to everybody for all your texts today. Keep it up all week. I enjoy the show so much more. So much more fun when you guys are part of it. 512-337-3776. Save it in your phone. Text in every day. Well, I love it. We did see, I did look at the stats at the Eagles game. The Eagles not having fun in the red zone is contagious. That the Cowboys did not have red zone luck. And there's something, Chan brings it up, my man Chan, the Eagles offense is sputtering compared to last year. This is something. They were really dominant, 3rd and 4th downs. They didn't try and do the tush push, it seems, when they went for it on 4th down in the red zone in the first drive of the game. They hand the ball off to Gainwell. He did not get it. It seemed like they have the most surefire thing with Jalen Hurts, so I don't know why they did that, but maybe he's still beat up. People are saying there's reports that Jalen Hurts may still be a little bit injured, may have a shoulder problem, so that could be part of it. But they're having some issues in the red zone as well. Red zone's hard. Red zone football is just hard. It's why Sark is so adamant of trying to work that out and why it's important for Sark to get better and this Texas team to get better in the red zone. Because, man, if you're a good red zone team, it's like why we're up against Krauske and Travis Kelce. And those tight ends are so valuable because when you can be a good red zone team, when you turn field goals into touchdowns, man, makes life so much easier. What would make life easier for Astros fans is if the Astros found a way out of the slump. It's slumping at the worst time of the year, lose a series to the Royals, get swept by the Royals, a team with a losing record. And they got some good young talent in the Royals. I'll salvage them that, but they lose that. Their magic number is now 5. They have 6 games left, so that's not great. You're competing against the Mariners, who are trying to get into that spot. So the Mariners are trying to take it from you. Huge game tonight. They're playing tonight. Verlander on the mound for the Astros, which doesn't give you the hope and the feeling that you normally have. You know that means that Dubon's probably in center field and Maldonado's behind the plate, which means Chas McCormick and Yanni Diaz may not even be in the lineup. We don't know. Maybe one of them will be, but one of them will probably be out of it. Rangers' magic number to get in the playoffs is 3. To win the AL West is 5, but that number can change. The number can change depending on what the Mariners and the Astros do in these next few games, and the Rangers are playing the Mariners to end the season. That is going to be a big one, but it is definitely time for the Astros. And look, as much as I'll talk about Mike McCarthy, and I know I go hard on him, something about that guy, something about him. I don't just feel I'm right on this one, but maybe not. Who knows? You guys can have your opinion too. People are going after Dusty Baker. For a guy who won a World Series last year, you would not feel that the city believes he won a World Series last year of how much people are going after Dusty Baker. I'll have some love for Dusty Baker. If you want to go check something out, last call. There's a really good comedy show. My man Brian Garr does a comedy show on Monday nights, I think once a month, at the Far Out Lounge down south Austin. The weather's getting a little bit nicer here at night. Go check out that show. South Austin Comedy Show is what it's called, Brian Garr. I believe that's going to be starting up here in just a little bit, but if you're down south, that's a cool thing to check out on a Monday night if you're not watching Monday Night Football. For everybody else, enjoy the show. We'll be talking about Monday Night Football and taking your text and doing so much more. Coming back tomorrow. Till then, be safe, be kind, keep your underwear clean. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on the Horn on the Sports Complex, Tuesday afternoon.